Good evening and welcome to the show. I'm Palki Sharma Upadhyay and you're watching the 9 p.m. special broadcast on WION, the only Indian channel with a global perspective that brings you top stories from South Asia. On the show tonight, as India awaits the results of the midterm mandate in less than 12 hours from now, the exit polls have clearly shown a definite trend that nearly 3 years after coming to power, Prime Minister Narendra Modi still captures the imagination of the nation and brand Modi still works for his party. While it is true for India, what is the perception of the Prime Minister outside this country, all over the world? That's what we are discussing today. And let's take you back to 2014 for that. This was Modi's first visit to the US and the rock star reception he got at Madison Square Garden from an estimated 18,000 cheering Indians and people of Indian origin.
मैं एक बहुत ही छोटा इंसान हूं, मैं बहुत ही सामान्य इंसान हूं। मेरा बचपन भी ऐसा ही बीता है और छोटा हूं, इसलिए मेरा मन भी छोटे छोटे काम करने में लगता है। लेकिन छोटा हूं, इसलिए छोटे छोटे लोगों के लिए बड़े बड़े काम करने का इरादा रखता है।
Or we could talk about the year before when he took a leave from the former US President Barack Obama's Yes We Can election campaign line and molded it for his constituency. Gujaratis can and Gujaratis will.
આપણો નવો મંત્ર છે ગુજરાત કેન અને ગુજરાતીઝ વિલ. ગુજરાત કેન, ગુજરાતીઝ વિલ. ગુજરાત કરી શકે અને ગુજરાતીઓ કરીને રહેશે. હું કહીશ ગુજરાત કેન, તમે હાથ ઉપર કરીને બોલજો ગુજરાતીઝ વિલ. ગુજરાત કેન. બરાબર પૂરા બે હાથ ઉઠા કરીને યુકે અમેરિકામાં સંભળાવવું જોઈએ. ગુજરાત કેન, ગુજરાત કેન. જય જય ગરવી ગુજરાત.
And since then, Modi has been feted in a number of world capitals, from Washington in June last year when he was invited to address the US Congress, where he sought to bring the two democracies closer.
Independence was ignited by the same idealism that fueled your struggle for freedom. No wonder then that former Prime Minister of India, Sri Atal Bihari Vajpayee, called India and the US natural allies.
And not to forget the Chai Pe Charcha with Barack Obama in 2015, when he was the guest of honor at the Republic Day parade in Delhi. Many ask, how is it that a man who proudly calls himself a tea seller went on to transform himself into not just a national, some would say, even a world leader? How did this transformation come about? Clearly, it's no accident. Rather, it is credit to the Prime Minister himself and his brand managers who have transformed him into a decisive leader with a clear development agenda. Some of the best advertising and public relations firms from India and the world over were brought in to shape and structure the brand Modi campaign, including on television, print, and on radio. In fact, let's take a look at what is it that has helped Modi, that has helped in the building of brand Modi. It helped that the Prime Minister, despite being a Gujarati politician, was known outside the state when he made the national foray. Despite his age, he was able to connect with the youth. He talked about Gujarat's model of development, and that struck a chord with many across India. He spoke about improving the skills of the youth, and that is something that the aspirational youth latched on to. And also the need for speed in government decision-making. More governance, less government was one of his most famous lines. Well, brand experts say that every person is a brand in himself or herself, and this brand is what decides whether this person is liked, disliked, or respected. And if this perception is managed consistently, it can help transform him or her. And that, it seems, has something that has guided brand Modi and those who've contributed towards the building of this brand for a wider perspective rather on this. Let's in fact open this to our panel. We are being joined by a senior journalist, Daniel Francis, and from Islamabad we have Fahd Humayun. He's a researcher, was formerly with the Jinnah Institute, and political analyst from Dhaka, Shamsher M. Chaudhary. They're all joining us. Good evening to all of you. Thank you for being with us here on WION. Mr. Francis, let me ask you first, is Modi an international brand, as big a brand as we're making him out to be, or is this just a media creation in India? Right, I'm told we will be joined by Daniel Francis in just a bit. But let me then take this question to Shamsher Chaudhary. Mr. Chaudhary, domestically, barring the political parties, most see Narendra Modi as a decisive leader, a doer, a man who performs, who delivers, and not just talks. Is that what his perception is outside India, especially in the neighborhood as well?
Well, thank you. In Bangladesh, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is seen as somebody who is to deliver on issues that impact on Bangladesh-India bilateral relations. So far he has, on most of the issues, especially the land boundary agreement, which he really showed a lot of skill and dexterity in resolving this long-standing problem. However, the water issues that remain unsolved and unresolved is a sticking point, and one doesn't know how much the Prime Minister from Delhi can deliver on this, because the issue here is West Bengal and West Bengal's Chief Minister. So until now, one has to see that how much can Mr. Modi influence on the West Bengal Chief Minister, Mamata Banerjee, to deliver on an issue that will, to a great extent, mitigate the trust deficit and certainly move our relationship forward. But he is still somebody who has so far delivered, yes.
That's good to know. Daniel Francis, I'm told, is back with us. Daniel, how is brand Modi seen internationally, or are we making too much of his expected electoral success in the results which are expected tomorrow?
It is said that nothing succeeds like success. And brand Modi in the run to the 2014 elections built a marketing package, a brand around his own identity that was believable. That is why overwhelmingly people supported and voted for him. And he seems to have carried that brand identity very successfully, to a lot of countries, building a great reputation for himself and a government that is that he leads. There are obvious threats and challenges to any brand, and with brand Modi, with the honeymoon period seems to be now almost over. How much this, after this air subsides of this great brand, whether people will be able to believe that this brand has delivered or not delivered, particularly will come to know with tomorrow's election results, whether the magic of the brand continues or not continues. But I must say, it was a successful brand, built very well, with a lot of thought and having a lot of hope and promise, which brands need, and most importantly earned the trust of the people of India.
Right, you say the honeymoon period is getting over. Is electoral success the only indicator of how popular a leader is? And by that logic, Prime Minister Modi's party lost both Delhi and Bihar, and yet he remained the biggest leader you can talk about in India in the current context. So is this the only indicator, or would you say, and also we know that in a national election, a state election, people vote differently, there are different dynamics at play. So would you call this election so very important for Modi the brand?
Just in the context of this election, while I personally traveled in the states where elections are fought, I understood one thing, that the personal popularity of the Prime Minister, I don't think it has got dented or damaged in any way due to demonetization or other issues of governance, so on and so forth. It's still a brand that surpasses its competition way ahead. You know, I think that that is very clear. And when I go to Bombay and particularly interact with the business community, they see a lot of hope, you know, in him and his government. When I meet the common man, you know, we come to understand that they relate to him and find resonance in him in some way. So as a brand, it has resonance in almost all sections of the society, which is a very powerful thing to have, you know. And he's conducted himself from the brand consciousness point of view very well, and kept these things. But rightly I said, political brands are very different from FMCG products or any other brands and services. Political brands get validated time and again when elections arise. So I am just waiting if while I endorse that his brand image is still strong, I'm just waiting for the election results tomorrow.
All right. Fahd, Humayun, how do you see brand Modi? How is he seen in Pakistan?
Hi, thanks for having me on your show. There's certainly no doubt about it that Prime Minister Modi has received, you know, rock star treatment wherever he's gone abroad. There's a larger than life persona which he carries, whether it's, you know, his visits to the Gulf or Iran, or, you know, trips to Kabul, which of course is Pakistan watches very closely. I think there's been some slight disappointment within Islamabad. There was some hope that after a decade of Congress rule, in which the Congress and Prime Minister Manmohan Singh were especially seen to be hemmed in by a lack of political space to move forward with Pakistan. There was certainly this hope in 2014 when Prime Minister Modi came to power that his majorities in Parliament and the promises that he had made to be a strong and decisive Prime Minister would perhaps leave him slightly less encumbered and more able to do something on the bilateral front with Pakistan. We have not really seen the India-Pakistan relationship move forward. In fact, if anything, the past 12 months or so have seen perhaps the worst tensions that the two countries have witnessed since 2003, which is when India and Pakistan, of course, signed a very important ceasefire agreement on the line of control. So while there is a clear recognition that Prime Minister Modi certainly has the political space. And certainly the ability to perhaps cut through some of the bureaucratic red tape, which is notorious in South Asia, especially when it comes to foreign policy making. We've not really seen that sort of forward movement take place, and I think we're still waiting to see both India and Pakistan really break out of those that sort of Cold War mold which they've continued to find themselves locked in.
Right, Shamsher Chaudhary. Fahd Humayun is talking about the deteriorating relationship, and without getting into the facts of what may have contributed to it, we are focusing on the brand, and brand has a lot to do with perception. And as far as perception goes, would you say that Narendra Modi, at least on that count, has come on top because he made all the right moves? He can go out and say, I put my best foot forward, invited Nawaz Sharif for the swearing in, went to the birthday bash, and then things deteriorated from there on. So as far as brand building is concerned internationally as well, how is Narendra Modi seen in that context? And because India and Pakistan seem to have this hyphenated existence.
Well, I think it's not just the brand that is still there, it's the way the brand has been packaged. And I think sitting in Bangladesh, we still do not see the brand shine rubbing off. It is still, I think, there. May have, over time, it may have lost a bit of its shine. But I think one is waiting with God breath what comes out tomorrow from the state elections. If the BJP has done well, we'll know by tomorrow noon, perhaps, most of the thing, then we can say the brand is still in good form. But as someone in this panel said, that in terms of his competitors or his competition, he has been ahead for a long time, and he continues to be well ahead of others in the Indian context. I would only hope, as a good neighbor and a friend, that Prime Minister Modi can use these positives to really provide more impetus to Bangladesh-India relations in a positive manner. It's a very key relationship, very critical relationship. We understand here in Bangladesh, there are security concerns in India. We fully understand that, we recognize that. We also hope the Indians will recognize that we have issues which are very, very vital to our survival. And top of that list, of course, is water. Second is water, the third is water. So if we can use that strength that he has domestically to move on the relations with neighbors in a positive manner, I think it will be something we as a neighbor would welcome.
Daniel Francis, you've tracked the Modi government over the past 3 years, and Shamsher Chaudhary is talking about Prime Minister Modi doing more in the neighborhood. Would you say that this was a well-orchestrated strategy while he tried to widen his domestic footprint through electoral victories, through imposing his authority to you know, he's also internationally, he's tried to gain more acceptability over the past 3 years, despite all the criticism from the opposition for his foreign trips. He's really made his presence felt on the international stage, and that has been part of a well thought out strategy, would you say?
You know, the way he built his international strategy in terms of communicating his own brand and the vision of the government was done in an extraordinary manner. Though I am a little skeptical about the fact that as if it never happened in the past. For example, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was the first head of state invited by the Obama administration in 2008 for and given a state welcome. Now the question is that have these things happened in the past or not? They have happened. But in a gloomy global and domestic environment, Modi tried to put this picture out very successfully that India was messed up, and here I am putting things straight, and you can trust me, and we can do business. And I think he's able to communicate that message very well. Though there are two things. One is the brand message and the brand reality. The reality of, in terms of, for example, if he's talking about attracting investments or improving foreign relationships, I think there's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be done. That vision of that brand has not been able to been translated completely. And vis-a-vis his relationship with Bangladesh and Pakistan, I think with relationship with Bangladesh, he has taken forward the relationship as it was by the previous government, which is a great thing to do.
Right.
When we saw Nawaz Sharif at his swearing in, we thought that something path-breaking would happen between Pakistan and this. But again, it might internationally look very fragile. Domestically, I think the brand is playing with people's sentiment here to ensure that we communicate to the people of India that we are keeping Pakistan on tenterhooks. So it's about the spin that this government is giving to the people here, because at the end of the day, all these domestic issues, foreign policies also affect elections and the public persona of the Prime Minister.
Right. Fahd Humayun, politicians are difficult products, if I may, difficult products to be branded. They're traditionally seen as arrogant, unapproachable, and they do not go beyond making those stipulated speeches when it comes to marketing themselves. Would you say that Modi has changed that idiom, at least in the Indian context? He's reached out.
I would say yes and no. He's certainly found he's been able to leverage social media to great effect. Certainly in terms of reaching out to and telegraphing important messages. In your preamble, you talked about the successes of the past year and a half, which have been broadcast not just domestically and within the region, but to a more global audience. And it's not just, if you, it goes beyond Prime Minister Modi's own persona. If you look at what the Ministry of External Affairs is doing, and what your foreign minister is doing in terms of just in terms of sheer advocacy and being able to, I think, connect to Indians and the Indian diaspora across the world. That's a remarkable feat, and something which brand Modi should certainly be lauded for. But at the same time, it does sort of get back into the whole question of where is policy being made and how is policy being made. I mean, again, going back to the India-Pakistan relationship, there is certainly some confusion about whether Prime Minister Modi has a policy on Pakistan at all, and if is that policy being made in the PMO or is it being made in South Bloc? Sometimes we've seen with Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif that they've tried to take the conversation to Twitter and break the shackles of the old institutionalized channels of communication in the hopes of perhaps achieving a breakthrough. That's been successful at times, at other times it's not been successful. But the conversation still gets pegged down into the old rhetoric of terrorism and then Jammu and Kashmir. And I think what we're still really waiting for is to see signs of the Prime Minister Modi display the sort of decisive leadership that the region really needs, because of course South Asia is more than just the sum of its parts, and particularly with SAARC, and something which Prime Minister Modi alluded to when he was as part of his election manifesto, was that to use SAARC as a platform on which to take South Asia collectively forward as a powerful regional grouping. And we've seen that SAARC in some ways has become a dead horse in the past year and a half, and there was a lot of disappointment in Islamabad that the summit was cancelled. India chose not to attend the 19th meeting that was supposed to take place in Islamabad in November. So I think it's still a wait and watch sort of policy that Islamabad is taking at the moment. Still hoping that Prime Minister Modi will be able to be that sort of regional leader who has a vision for South Asia that can overcome these differences.
Right. Well, in the Indian context, if you were to ask the journalists I've spoken to, and I think Daniel Francis would agree with me, that if you compare Modi's government and his cabinet to recent governments, they are more communicative, they're more approachable, and in that sense they also tend to control the narrative, and that is what perhaps lends to the success of their brand. But I'm going to thank you all, Shamsher Chaudhary, Fahd Humayun and Daniel Francis, for joining us this evening on WION. And for our viewers, I want to tell you this is something I came across earlier today. Brands must deliver on a promise consistently. In the context of politicians, these two aspects, delivering on a promise and consistency, pretty much lose the meaning. Is Modi an exception to that? Write to us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks very much for watching.